Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, people. Hope we're all having a fantastic day. It is a very gloomy day here in Marbella. We're due to have a bit of rain today and tomorrow, which, look, part of life. Could be a lot worse. Could be in Ireland with it raining nearly every fucking day. But we're due to have like 20 degrees, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday, and pretty much all sun for the rest of the week. So look, we'll take a few rainy days if we can have the majority of our time here in the sun. It is Friday. We are now officially 4 weeks out from the big wedding, and we are excited. We're very, very excited. Pretty much everything's sorted now. We have just really to hand over money, but we have pretty much everything done. Table plans done, you know, all the decoration stuff is all planned out, pretty much all the RSVPs in as well, so it's exciting times. And there is my new wife. There she is. Hi. Mrs. Story. No. Yes, Mrs. Story. No. Yeah, she even has it on a pair of shoes, so you know, she made it official. She made her own bed and now she will sleep in it. So 4 weeks out from the wedding, it's also week 2 of this gaining phase, if you could call it that so far. So last week you'll remember that I mentioned how my weight jumped up quite a bit from low 88, about 88 kilos on the dot on average, up towards 89.4 within the week, which is to be expected with the increase in calories, increase in glycogen, more gut content. Now this week, my weight has pretty much just been 89.7 flat for like probably 5 days in a row. And today actually had my weight drop by about a kilo, so it's 88.7 today. So the exact change, or the lack of change, which I mentioned last week to happen, has happened. So we can be pretty sure to say that I'm probably at a maintenance level of intake right now, which is, you know, I'm happy out with, to be honest, because I don't necessarily want to get too much fatter. And not that I'm fat at all right now, I know that I'm quite lean, but you know, just in the interest of fitting into the suit well, I need to keep up this discipline. Now, to be perfectly honest, I'd be happy out staying at this exact body weight and staying at this exact calorie intake for the next couple of weeks just before the wedding, just to, again, ensure the suit fits correctly, because I'm in no rush at the end of the day to put on more size. And even just the last week, so every single training session, I've had more progressions and hitting essentially like lifetime PBs across, well, lifetime PBs on those movements. Heaviest loads I've been lifting. And it's funny because I have been training with pretty much the exact same training program for about a year now. There hasn't been much change by way of rep ranges. There's been a few exercise tweaks for sure, but some sessions have stayed the exact same for about a year, and you know, progress is not really like stopped at all. And this is something I talk about in the latest video on the pragmatic guide to building muscle in regards to making training tweaks. They only really need to make them when they're warranted, and a lot of the fixes or changes I need to make are like local fixes. So local fix being, you know, not changing volume, not really changing intensity, not changing frequency. It could just be a specific movement for a couple of weeks has been extremely plateaued or has regressed, and that needs now to be changed. But apart from that, everything else has remained the exact same. Exercise order, amount of days of training, amount of volume I'm accumulating through the week. A lot of people will, throughout a year of training, maybe they'll mistake, you know, slow progress for no progress. And the more advanced you get, like I'm relatively advanced now, right? I'm training a very long time. I'd say I'm close enough to my genetic seeding from a muscle mass perspective, and I've been training with the same program for a long period of time. So I'm not going to get like new weights on the bar, new rep PBs every single week. Sometimes they're going to be a bit slower, and the person who's like in that intermediate stage, they're probably having like rose-tinted glasses of looking back at like when they were a beginner and they're progressing every single session, and it's just not really the case once you get that little bit more advanced, and that can cause them to make too many changes to the program which are not really warranted, and they get this like false illusion that they are making progress, because when you change an exercise, you do have like a couple of weeks where your body's going through like the motor learning process and making quick neural adaptations which result in strength gain. But it's not as if your muscles are actually growing, right? It's more just the case that you're getting better at the movement, and as a result your strength on that movement is going up. But it's only really when you're sticking with movements for a very set period of time, a very long period of time, that you really start to see, okay, now the extra changes I'm getting here, where maybe I'm stuck at rep count, say 6 reps for 2-3 weeks, but if you hold it off on that 4th week, maybe get up to the 7th rep. And this could be a case that now you've gained enough extra sarcomeres, or your muscle fibers have increased in enough volume to produce enough more force to get that 7th rep, and that's a change in muscle size. So it's just some things to be aware of if you are in that kind of stage where you're thinking that, oh, my progression is quite slow. What I lean into is like, am I doing everything from a recovery perspective right? Am I hitting my calories, hitting my protein, eating enough carbohydrates during my training? Am I coming to my session well fueled, hydrated? Am I keeping top of my sleep, keeping top of my stress? Am I ensuring that I'm training hard enough but not blowing my load in every single session and doing way too much volume that I can recover from? Because I know if I am doing that, keeping top of my recovery variables, ensuring that training is of good intensity but not too much, not overdoing it with more volume than I should be doing, and I'm recovering well session to session, I'd be pretty sure if I just persevere that those rep progressions are going to come, and it doesn't warrant me making changes, just making knee-jerk reactions to your training and making quick changes which you don't need. They're quite often what keeps people in that like intermediate cycle and never really getting closer to their genetic potential. And that's definitely one learning I've had from focusing more on bodybuilding across the last year. Less tweaks, just more consistency and more effort. That's all it comes down to. Okay, we're in the gym for pull now. Have my single arm lat pull downs just finished, which were pretty much match reps from last week. But again, as I said earlier on, understanding my rate of progression here is quite important. Like, they felt equally as good or stimulative as last week, so I just need to kind of keep patient, and those extra load increases will come, or those extra rep increases will come, because I'm at all-time strength levels on it. So it's like kind of equivalent to, if you're at all-time strength levels with your squat, right? You've peaked your squat, you've hit a 1RM. Do you expect to go in next week and hit a 1RM again? No. You'd probably be able to come close to that level of performance the next week, the week after that. And then it might be a couple of weeks time before you hit a new 1RM, especially as you're really, really advanced. Now, obviously, if you're training for a 1RM strength, you probably wouldn't do that anyway. Now, onto some chest support rows here. I unfortunately won't be using this, so I've been using this for the last few weeks, but this is one of the downsides to having your machines outside. So look at this side, right? So Prime equipment is very, very expensive gym equipment, and it only ships from the US as well, so it takes ages to get to its destination. Look at this side, right? Unloaded. It should fall right back down to the bottom, okay? You know, as gravity intended. Now, if you look at this side, that should fall down right now. So, for obvious reasons, I'm not going to use that, because I tried to muscle through it one session a couple of weeks back. They had fixed it and put WD-40 on it in between, and just that side just felt like I was lifting like an extra 30-40 kilos. So I'm gonna have to sub it for something else. There is another Prime chest supporter out here, so I'll move on to that. So one very helpful tip to get more out of a chest supported row like this is, versus setting up with like a lot of like arching through your spine, where you'll see some guys when they're getting into position, their feet almost behind them and then they're almost like lifting their chest up and arching their back. And a lot of times what happens here is they can't get the scapula or the shoulder blades to start moving around the rib cage then and get a lot of length into your like, so the upper back muscles. So just a simple cue to help you with this is just shift your feet forward and underneath you. Think about like your feet actually trying to oppose the weight as it's trying to pull you in. When they're behind you, they don't really have that like same level of bracing or stability. So put those feet forward, and once you have your feet forward, it's a lot easier to kind of keep your torso in more of a neutral position, or even what I like to think about is like having a bit more of a kind of crunch down into my abs. Now, as you do this, the shoulder blades are going to have an easier time actually moving around that rib cage, because you're not having them stuck in this extended position. Now, if we really want to grow the muscles of the upper back, we need to allow them to lengthen. Keeping your chest up and your shoulders back is a very poor cue if you want to grow a really thick, dense back. So we're almost done our back work for this session. We've got a wider pull down to go. Now you can see it did 2 rows in a row there, but they're slightly different, right? Obviously one is unilateral and one is using 2 hands. But the difference is intent. With the row, what it's doing on the Prime machine with 2 hands, my intent there is I am coming into a low reach position and I'm thinking about rowing with everything, right? I'm pulling through my elbows, I'm driving my shoulder blades back, and then my shoulder blades to roll forward, and I'm getting pretty much everything hit within my back here, right? I'm getting my rhomboids, I'm getting my upper traps, I'm getting some mid traps, I'm getting some lats, getting some terries, everything there around the shoulder blades and around the upper arm that's attaching from the back is going to be hit within that movement. Now with this single arm row that I just did, the intent is different. You can see that I wasn't not letting my shoulder blades roll too far forward. I was just coming as far as my upper arm could move forward, right? Once I reached that point, I pull straight back. And the reason for that being is trying to keep more of the stimulus onto the lats, right? If I'm trying to maintain this like kind of semi-supinated position, Once I want to reach more forward than this, right, I'm gonna have to have the hand turn over. And now for sure, I'm starting to feel, okay, a bit more kind of trap involvement is coming in here. Probably get a little bit more lengthening in through the rhomboids as well. But then if I initiate the movement from here, I'm not initiating from the lats. And I want to use that row as a specific lat focus, which is why I'm just thinking of kind of moving through that upper arm and not letting myself kind of roll forward over the movement. So the big difference between a lot of back movements, for sure, arm pat matters, right? The closer your arms are to your side, the more contribution you can probably get for your lats. The further away, less contribution, but it's also about intent. Are you thinking about driving through your hand and then as a result you get more bicep? Are you thinking about driving through your elbow and as a result you might get a little bit more of the musculature that's attaching up onto the upper arm? Or are you thinking about driving through the likes of your shoulder blades and just kind of looking at moving that part? There's a lot of people when they're trying to train their lats, they're still going to be just either moving through their bicep or they're going to be just kind of shrugging the shoulder back without actually kind of moving with intent through the likes of the elbow. So that's something for you to consider, and something that you'll need to just record your training for and see, okay, what muscle am I trying to hit? What way should that movement contract? What joint should be moving? Or what joint should stay still? Once you've answered those questions, reviewing your training footage will come home a lot clearer and have a lot more understanding of why you're getting development in some areas and not so much development in other areas. Back work done, and now we're on to rear delts, which are probably the most boring muscles to train, I'd say next to abs. So one of the important teaching points when it does come to training your rear delts is you want to think about more so moving through your upper arm versus just shrugging your shoulder blades inwards. So a lot of people do. You see them on the machine, you see them on the cable, and they're just doing this, okay? And while your rear delts are certainly contributing, because they do help a hyperextension of the arm, one thing that we do want to try to reduce is just how much of the movement is being completed through the shrug. So what I like to think about when I'm actually doing it is I like to think about like extending my hand out as far as I can, whatever shoulder blade position that finds me in, which is typically going to be contracting, so reaching forward. I want to try to keep that level of contraction, and then I want to just think about kind of sweeping my hand outwards, okay? And as I sweep my hand outwards now, I'm going through more just shoulder joint movement, so glenohumeral joint movement. And as I do this, now it's likely that the rear delt is going to be the thing that's just contributing to that movement versus just yanking back and all of a sudden I'm shifting a lot more kind of direction of the tension onto like the mid traps. Another thing you can see as well when I'm actually performing, I don't just go directly out to the side, I'm thinking about coming from a high reach to a low position, okay? And this is because the rear delts, the muscle fiber is actually a little bit more of an oblique fashion, so it's a little bit more diagonal. So this is just essentially lining up with the direction of the muscle fibers. Maybe it makes a difference, maybe it doesn't, but all I know is it feels way better when I do it like that versus just with my hand out directly to the side. So give it a shot.
Okay, we are back from the gym. And it's time to get my rice cooker meal ready. So, as per last week, potatoes, broccoli, everything done in the rice cooker. Just going to throw these into the air fryer now, as well as the broccoli. I'm creating a little bit of a cult here. So Emma is on the rice cooker hype. She's doing, not her vegetables in it, but she's doing her meat as well as the rice there. I've had people message me on Instagram to say that they've bought rice cookers now. I've had clients try it out and be like, wow, this is gonna save so much time. So look, I'm not wrong often. And this time, I'm definitely on the money. If you're still complaining about how long it takes you to prep meals, or you don't have time to prep meals, get a fucking grip and get a rice cooker, all right? Now, one thing that I have tweaked today, as per Emma's experimentation yesterday, is just reducing the water I've been using. So typically I've used 2 times the amount of water for the rice, but I haven't been accounting for the amount of water that's going to be lost from the meat. And I think that's why it's become a little bit more kind of like mushy, which again, I don't mind if it's a little bit mushy because, you know, it's going in somehow. so I don't mind if it's a little bit mushy, but I would like it to be a little bit more, you know, just the typical texture and consistency of rice. So you're going to see today if that's improved. Part of me thinks it might not, but just because I'm prepping so much rice and prepping so much meat, whereas Emma only prepped like meat portions for like 1 meal yesterday. Okay, let's take this off and see how we are. So the top looks good so far. Let me take out the broccoli and we'll see how the bottom is doing. Okay, so we're gonna see what it's like towards the bottom. Oh, that's way better. Yeah. Yeah. Not as mushy at all. Perfect. So today that was 250 grams of rice. I think I used about 350 grams of meat altogether, and then 450 grams of water. Much better consistency. There we go. Nailing it. And here we go. Much better consistency of the rice today. I'm always hungry after training. And yeah, keeping with the exact same type of layout to meals, even if I train a little bit earlier on in the day, just for the sake of consistency in that side of my routine, right? Versus just having like my cereal. Because typically I would have had my cereal right now, but that's just because the cereal would be so quick to prep. But sticking to what I said last week, whereas having that quicker to digest, easier to eat meal a little bit later on in the day, I've been doing that pretty much every day last week, and definitely do feel as if I'm drifting off easier, and I feel a little bit like less like bloated leading into bed, and I don't necessarily feel like any more like sleepy having like big meals earlier on in the day. If anything, I just find like from a digestive point of view, things are just sitting way nicer. So, you know, gotta continue to keep it up. One fun project I gave myself yesterday was actually reorganizing my office, because I was getting quite sick of how like the big box lamps looked. Like it just looked, I don't know, I wasn't happy with it, you know, and I have to be in this office pretty much every single day. And one thing I wanted to make it look a little bit better for is like recording content at my desk, but also just like reducing the amount of like cables all over the place, because having it with the big box lamps, that really just like ruined the whole aesthetic of the room. So this is how I have it set up. We're keeping the DJ area over here, my whiteboard where I'm going to be recording YouTube videos. I have my LED lamp, or big long lamp, over there. And then over here is where I have my bookcase. I have my little vision board here, my speaker. I have all my books. So I have all of my like kind of training type books here. I've got like anatomy book here. I've got a book from Brad Schoenfeld here, and one from Peter Fitchen and Cliff Wilson. Josh Bryant's Jailhouse Strong. We have Biomechanics for Dummies, which I bought fucking like literally when I started PTing. I've got on my books for my Prescript course. I've got the Scientific Principles of Strength Training by Juggernaut Training Systems. Motivational interviewing, again, very important to know what this is if you work with clients. Dan John book, Carl Sagan. I've got one on productivity here. Nick Saban as well, one of the best coaches of all time in any sport. And then down here I have a lot of my, this is pretty much the main series I've been reading before bed. CJ Box, the Joe Pickett series. I literally have almost every book here. it's when you find a good series, why stop reading it? And then here's some books I actually haven't read. These are some of Emma's books. She just has so much books up in her office that she has no more room, so I took them down here. They got Determined by Robert Sapolsky, which I do actually want to read. His book Behave, as well as Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, is fantastic, so I must read this. It's all about free will. We have a bit of Seneca here, and then we have some more ones down here. Have Alex Hormozy here, and then a couple of other ones on mindset. And then we have obviously the desk area. So I just flipped it around. Have my laptop there as usual, my diary, my little boom arm. I haven't used this in fucking ages. I need to rub it out and make something new on it. But it's going to look a little bit nicer to record content because I obviously have my LED lights behind me. I've got a lamp there which would be like a key light. And then I can essentially just put, you know, a tripod here. And I do have one box lamp set up just by the bed. All of that is like wedding shit. So the office over this side is a bit messy. So this gives you like the false illusion that it's like all clean. And look at this. This is the poster myself and Emma got made for our day 2 of our wedding. So we have like, you know, all of the kind of DJ sets kind of time there. We have a ChatGPT version of a picture that we did for a photo shoot together. It feels a little bit like a nicer office now. Like obviously the other side is very cluttered, but a lot of that stuff is going to go once the wedding takes place because a lot of it is like wedding gear. But yeah, I'm happy out with it. So what I'm going to do now is I do have a bit of work to do. I've got mostly content related stuff. I've just been kind of lazy with it this week. Podcast to record, some YouTube videos to edit. That's what we'll do until it's time to eat again. So yeah, that is the office update. Okay kids, got a good bit of work done there. We got a podcast recorded. We have the latest episode of the Pragmatic Guide to Building Muscle up. I'll put a card up there so you can click on it. It's video number 8 is all about how to adjust your training when it's needed. Something I talked about already earlier on in this video. So go over there, watch it, learn the exact ways I go about making changes programs if I am making them versus just making changes willy-nilly and essentially program hopping, because it is truly the difference between people who get phenomenal results and people who just continue to end up spinning their wheels is actually having a system in place. Got a podcast recorded on how to maintain your body composition results, which it's not on the channel just yet, but it's going to be on the Spotify page. It's a story strengthcast, again, shameless plug. But really leaning into the long form content this year because I much prefer it. I am somebody who is long-winded. I take a while to get my points across. I like to add nuance, and unfortunately, the social media or Instagram algorithm, and I don't use TikTok, just don't allow for that. Because people just have the attention spans of fucking goldfishes. You know, they're not my type of people. The people who have those attention spans typically are also not the people who can stick to a plan long term and get good results anyway, so they probably wouldn't find it too useful. It is dinner time now, and we are making our meal number 3. So that is going to be our onions, garlic, peppers, mushrooms, and our meat and rice, alongside some cashew nuts and butter and chili oil. The exact same meal as last week. Again, I don't really have too much variation in what I eat day to day. The only time I really actually vary on my eating is on rest days, where my fats are a little bit higher. They're up at 90 grams and my carbs are down at 500. And that's just a slight alteration of meals, just bringing down my carbohydrate sources for the day and then having a little bit more fats in some of the other existing meals. So I'm keeping it pretty much the exact same structure of the meals, just with more fats and less carbohydrates. So again, pretty damn simple. And honestly, I talk about this ad nauseum, but when it does come to making changes to your diet and changes that you can be consistent with, it's all about finding ways that you can reduce friction and keep the plan as simple to follow as possible. Like, I do have some flexibility coming in here or there, like on my rest day with the higher fats. I do have maybe like an extra treat or 2 in my Ninja Creamy, or for example tomorrow, myself and Emma, we're going into a restaurant which we plan to go to with the bridal party and our families the night before the wedding. So we're going to try it there. So it's not as if everything is like extremely rigid, but you know, when I can be on plan, be 100%, why not be 100%? And I have the ability to do that most of the time. And that little bit of flexibility at the weekend, it kind of allows me to also be as locked in as I can be during the week, because I actually do enjoy this. And I think that's a really important component when it does come to, you know, getting in really good shape, you know, become a good bodybuilder, become a good powerlifter. You need to actually enjoy the process, and not just the getting on stage, not just the getting on a platform. You need to enjoy every single bit of it, because when you enjoy this, like staying in routine, making good food for yourself, going out doing your steps, you know, putting your head in the pillow at night and being like, I did everything I needed to do to help me get closer to my goal. Once you enjoy that part of the process, consistency is easy. It's just like a default mode, because you end the day knowing that you've won, and when you stack those wins, that's when you get the results. Your results are ultimately a byproduct of the day-to-day process. You don't just wake up one day and all of a sudden you're jacked, or all of a sudden you're able to deadlift 300 kilos. There's many steps in that process, and it all comes down to what you're doing right now. So keep that in mind. If you're watching this today, right, and maybe when you're watching this, you haven't went out for those steps and you've been thinking, will I sack it off today? Or I might eat a little bit more today. I don't really care about my calorie intake. I might go a bit over. Every time you let that little inside voice win, that voice that wants you to lose, that's pushing you further and further away from where you want to be. And again, the more often you let this voice in and let it change your behavior, that then becomes your default behavior. It becomes okay to not act in line with the goals that you want. Talk about this all the time with clients. So much of this is the mental aspect and trying to override that little bitch in your head. And today, we're not letting that little bitch win. So the rain has came for us. We're just finishing off our steps for the evening in the rain. Yes, conversations this week about clients not wanting to go out because it's raining in Ireland, a country where we probably get rain more than sun. I think people would get used to just going out. You have to remind yourself, you're not a Furby, you're not Gizmo. If you get wet, you're not going to die. Just get a little bit wet, that's about it. And then you get home, get your steps for the day. Success. Getting out in the rain is what separates the part-timers from the full-timers. And there we go, pretty much final meal of the day. I have the creamy to eat after this, but this is a mixture of cream of rice and oats, honey, some raspberries and meringue, because I actually have ran out of regular milk and I don't like eating Cocoa Pops with almond milk. So I just made this with almond milk and then the cream rice and the oats. So that's pretty much all the carbs done. Finish off the protein with the creamy, and that's the end of the day. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you picked up some little bits, if anything, a little bit of entertainment. Don't forget to subscribe if you're one of those people who watches videos who doesn't subscribe. I'm almost at 1,000, so please help me get there. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one.